Chapter 53. Silence and the Path. The labyrinth resembled nothing they had crossed before, not because it was narrower or darker, but because nothing within it seemed to obey any visible logic. Corridors opened and closed without apparent pattern, high smooth walls returning sound in a muffled way, as though the stone itself refused to carry it. Every turn offered a possibility that led nowhere. Every straight stretch ended in a dead end or in a fork identical to the one before. The group moved without bearings. There was no wind, no water, no reliable echo. Only the muted brush of boots over stone and the controlled sound of breathing. Alden had stopped counting the turns. At first he tried. He kept track in his mind of every change in direction, every corridor that sloped faintly downward or upward. But the labyrinth seemed to rearrange itself in his thoughts the moment he stopped looking at it directly. Not because it moved, but because it refused to be held as a map. "We have passed here before," Doran murmured at one point. No one answered. Sierra stopped, studying a mark on the wall. A vertical crack, fine as a scar. She would have sworn she had seen it before, but she could not be certain. In the abyss, certainty was a luxury. "I do not know," Alden said at last. "But if we did, it changes nothing. We keep going." Forward had lost its meaning a long while ago. They walked for what might have been an hour, or perhaps 3. Time stretched without reference. The crystal lights embedded in the walls held the same steady glow, without any shift to suggest progress or retreat. They were not exhausted yet, not truly, but another kind of fatigue had begun to settle. Deeper, heavier, the fatigue of not knowing. It was Cal who said it first. "Do you feel that?" Alden raised a hand, stopping the group. "What?" Kyle hesitated. "I do not know." He looked around. "As though someone were watching us." No one answered at once, not because they did not feel it, but because speaking it aloud would give it shape. Luthera had stopped as well. She did not growl. She did not bristle. She had only raised her head, her ears turning slowly, as though trying to locate something that gave off no sound. "There is no threat," Alden said quietly. It was not an assumption. It was a certainty. Leanna looked at him closely. "Are you sure?" Alden watched Luthera for another second. If there were, she would know. They went on. But the feeling did not fade. It was not the oppressive presence of Murkaz. It carried none of that contained animal violence. It was something else. A silent, curious attention that withdrew whenever they tried to fix it. Like a blink just beyond the edge of sight. At one point, the labyrinth narrowed, forcing them to move in single file. Then it opened again into a small chamber with no clear exit. There, for the first time since they had entered, Alden ordered them to stop. "A short rest," he whispered. "No noise." They sat against the walls, sharing the space without touching too closely. Doran took out a piece of hard bread. Cal did the same with dried meat. No one lit any additional light. It was not needed, nor wise. Lyanna was the only one who did not sit at once. There was something there, not in front, not behind, to one side, between 2 blocks of stone, where the crystal light did not quite reach. Her eyes took a second longer than usual to focus. And then she saw it. It did not move. It was small, the size of a child. Its body was covered in short, irregular fur of a shade difficult to place between gray and ochre. It had long, mobile ears that rose from a head slightly too large for its body. Its eyes, enormous, dark. They did not glow. They reflected. A thin tail curled behind it, barely visible against the shadow. The creature was watching them. Leanna held her breath. She did not cry out. She did not alert the group. She rose slowly, careful with every movement, as though the air itself might break if stirred too sharply. With her free hand, she took a small piece of bread from the ground. She stepped forward. The creature tensed. It did not flee. It did not attack. It only retreated half a step, its ears flattening against its head. Leanna crouched slowly and extended the bread, placing it on the stone without coming any closer. She waited. The silence thickened. Dorn was about to say something, but Alden raised a hand without looking at him. The gesture was slight. "Enough." The creature advanced, one step at first, then another. Its movements were quick but restrained, as if every muscle stood ready to flee. It reached the bread, sniffed it, then took it with both of its small hands. Its eyes brightened, not with light, with something simpler, relief. It retreated a few steps and began to eat quickly, but without desperation, like something that knew food did not always come. Lyanna exhaled slowly. "It lives here," she whispered. Alden looked at her. "Does it speak?" Lyanna shook her head. "No," she whispered, "but I think it understands this place better than we do." Kyle watched, fascinated. "What is it?" Lyanna did not answer at once. "It does not fear us as enemies," she said softly. "It fears us, as though we make too much noise here." Doran gave a low snort. "Noise?" The creature's head snapped up. Its eyes widened further. Its hands dropped the bread. It sprang back and began making quick, nervous gestures. Its hands moved downward, toward the floor, then toward the walls. It shook its head. "Lower your voices," Lyanna said urgently. "It is telling us not to make noise." The silence stretched for another second. Then they heard it. A deep blow, distant but unmistakable. Murkhaz's tail striking stone. Once, then again. The sound traveled through the labyrinth like an ancient heartbeat. No one breathed. The creature shrank against the wall, ears flattened, body trembling. It gestured again, more insistently now. It pointed toward a narrow corridor, nearly invisible between two walls. "Follow." Lyanna turned toward Alden. "It wants us to follow." Alden looked at Luthera. The wolf was not growling. She was not tense. She was only watching the creature with quiet attention. "We go," Alden said. There was no discussion. The creature moved first with astonishing agility, avoiding the places where sound seemed to rebound more sharply. The group followed in absolute silence, stepping where it stepped, stopping when it stopped. The labyrinth began to change, not in shape but in behavior. The corridors grew narrower, lower. The crystal light diminished, forcing them to trust immediate memory more than sight. In some stretches, the creature would stop and listen, tilting its head as though measuring the world through sound. At one point, the tail blows sounded again, closer this time. The creature stopped short and raised both hands. Still, the group obeyed. The sound passed or receded. No one could tell which. They continued, and then Lyanna understood. The labyrinth had not been made to confuse. It had been made to filter, to let pass only those who knew how to be silent, to wait, to listen. And they would never have managed it alone. At last, the creature stopped beside a different corridor, broader, descending in a gentle curve. It turned toward them. It did not speak. It inclined its head once. Then it vanished into the shadows without looking back. The group remained motionless for a few more seconds. "Did it leave?" Kyle whispered. Lyanna nodded slowly. "Yes." Alden looked at the corridor ahead. "Then we continue." He did not know whether it led them out. He did not know whether it led them to something worse. But for the first time since entering the labyrinth, they were no longer completely lost. And in the abyss, that was enough to keep walking. The road appeared without announcing itself. It did not emerge as a revelation, nor as a reward, but as an inevitable line between two slopes, marked by the constant passage of wheels, hooves, and boots. Riven saw it from a moderate height, leaning against the rock, his body weary and covered in blows he had not yet had time to count. There it was, the road to Thar'Zul. It was not broad nor grand, but it was clear, a track of packed stone and dark earth, winding between the mountains like an ancient scar, firm and enduring. It descended first, then vanished among folds of rock before appearing again farther below, where the land opened enough to allow caravans through. Riven drew a deep breath. The air here was different, drier, cleaner. The wind was still cold, but it no longer held the cruelty of the higher elevations. Every breath reminded him that he was still alive, though the body protested with every muscle. He remained leaning against the stone wall a moment longer. The fight with the mountain lion had left its marks. Not deep ones, but many. Bruises, shallow cuts, the dull fatigue of a fall that had demanded too much from the body. Even so, he remained on his feet. That was enough. He lifted his gaze. Farther down, 2 caravans were moving, not large. 3 wagons each, reinforced with iron at the corners, drawn by sturdy beasts adapted to the mountain. Their drivers were wrapped in thick cloaks, heads covered, alert to the ground beneath them. They did not look like guards or soldiers, only merchants or late supplies making for the dwarven city before the weather worsened. Thar'Zul itself was not yet visible, but its presence could be felt. The mountains arranged themselves around a controlled void, a geometry that did not wholly belong to nature. Even from afar, the rock seemed worked, as though someone had imposed will upon it for generations. It was not a city that displayed itself with towers or walls visible from afar. It was a city that hid itself, because it could. Riven followed the caravan's movement a while longer. He had imagined many ways of arriving. He had foreseen delays, ambushes, impossible detours. He had not foreseen falling from a precipice and surviving because of the body of a beast that had tried to kill him. The mountain possessed a particular sense of humor. He straightened fully. Pain answered at once, running through his side and back like a warning, not a prohibition. He adjusted the straps of his gear with measured movements. Checked the sword. Everything remained in place. He looked at the road again. He did not join the caravans, not yet. He knew they would attract attention. A lone armed man descending from a region few dared to cross. In Thar'Zul, curiosity could be as dangerous as contempt. He preferred to arrive in the right light, when questions were more easily deferred and footsteps less carefully measured. He began descending parallel to the road, keeping his distance. Every step took him farther from the absolute silence of the heights and closer to something more complex. Rules, glances, unspoken arrangements. The mountain range was brutal but honest. Civilization, less so. The path softened as he descended. Rock gave way to firmer stretches of earth. The slope demanded less from the body. In the distance, the muted ring of hammers, or perhaps only the wind, seemed to rise among the mountains. Riven lifted his head. Thar'Zul was near. He did not know what he would find there. He did not know whether he would be able to enter. He did not know how long he would be allowed to stay. But he had arrived, and once again that was enough.